What I thought I knew about vitamin D wasn't completely accurate, and Dr. Joel Gould has helped line me out and connect some things that are really, really important, especially on should we supplement, should we not supplement, and the information ties together so much important information. Dr. Joel, I am tickled to be visiting with you, my friend. You have done some piecing together for things for me personally that have been pretty abstract out there, some complicated things, but you've done it in an incredible way. But what I'd really like to do is like to come out the gate swinging. Can you really outline the problem with vitamin D deficiency? Because when you did that in some of the previous, that's when I really just like dove in, like this matters, and especially on that pediatric side.
Right. Well, I want to give a little context about who I am and why I'm qualified to say these things, and just a little bit about me. So I'm a dentist, general cosmetic dentist. My background started in pediatrics and public health dentistry for the government of Canada. I've worked in the schoolroom. I've worked in the school system. I have been practicing on live humans for 34 years. And I'm a clinician. So I literally put my hands on people. I prescribe things for them. I treat them. I do all these things. And over the years, something really profound happened to me is that about 10 years ago, I discovered another Canadian dentist by the name of Weston A. Price. And to anyone listening to this podcast, I want to give context. At this moment in time, no medical doctors, no dentists anywhere in North America, or even maybe Europe that I'm aware of, are being taught who is Weston A. Price. What did he say? Maybe we should listen to him. Maybe we shouldn't. And this is, to me, is pretty scandalous. So here I am as a dentist. And now a little bit more about me. I was sick my entire life. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease at age 14, but I had a bunch of other symptoms that came on me before that you'll recognize. So as a child, I was very sickly. I had what we would call eczema, colds, flus. I had my tonsils out at age 4. I was very skinny. I wouldn't eat anything. And then I had non-specific bone pain on one leg. They put me in a cast for a while. And when I was in maybe 5th or 6th grade, I started to get fat. So I started to become a chubby or a heavier kid. And then I was diagnosed at 14 with Crohn's disease. And then that's when my life went off the rails. To anyone who has a child who has health issues, the minute you become labeled a victim, you go into that hospital system and you're sitting around in paper gowns and waiting for procedures. So from the age of 14 to 48, I suffered with autoimmune disease. It's called Crohn's disease. It's a bathroom disease. It's embarrassing. And it destroyed my life. It destroyed my confidence. And I was very lucky to still have the ability to be a dentist. It's been a great profession for me, and it really fits me. I wanted to be a medical doctor, but there's no way that someone with Crohn's disease can be in an operating room. I have to go to the bathroom 30, 40 times a day. So dentistry was a good fit. And in the process of being a dentist, I started just to observe general things. As a dentist, I want to look in someone's mouth. I want to check their x-rays, see what they need. And, if anyone's been to the dentist, this is a job that focuses on the mouth. So now I have people lying down with a bright light shining on their airway. And what can I see? I can see if they're grinding their teeth. I can see what their tongue looks like. It's a very unique spot to be in. And I want you to think about what comes together in the oral cavity is breathing, speaking, eating. These are some of the most important things that we do as humans. And so the way we're designed as a human animal is that where we're getting our oxygen in from, you can live for a long time without eating. You can live for quite a while even without drinking water, but you can't live for more than 3 or 4 minutes without breathing. So our entire biology is focused on this area. And that's my expertise is the mouth. So when I found out about Weston Price, I found about him at the same time I found another really important person. I'm not sure if you investigated her work, but her name is Dr. Stasha Gominak. And she was the one who introduced me to the concept of vitamin D. What is it? All right. So most people think about vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin C. They get their vitamin C from fruits. Vitamin D is a hormone. It's not a vitamin. Vitamin D is such an important hormone that medicine has this entire giant hole where this has been removed or never investigated. not ever. So imagine a modern medical system that has completely disregarded the importance of a hormone that connects our bodies to being outside. The sunlight itself makes vitamin D on our skin. That's the proxy for season. That's a proxy for your conditions. This is ties us to our environment. And this hormone, this is something that we cannot make. If you don't have enough vitamin D, you will die eventually. And that's ultimately how people, I believe in the end, succumb to death. And it used to be death by natural causes when you'd live till, 95 or whatever, die in your sleep. Now that's called sleep apnea. And now little children are coming down with sleep apnea. So discovering vitamin D is a powerful hormone. It's linked to sleep. It's linked to the immune system. It's linked really tightly to the gut microbiome. And of course, this makes sense that the proxy for season on our skin and on us in our eyes is telling our bodies what we need to do. Where are we in the year? Is this winter? Is this spring? So this hormone doesn't get studied. And it turns out that the deficiency of this hormone is responsible, in my opinion, for 80% of all the bad things that go on in our health. Vitamin D is at the core of that. I like people to remember vitamin D3, immune system, sleep, and gut microbiome. Those are the three things that vitamin D really, where it comes into play for us. So the symptoms of low vitamin D, just to finish off this thought process that you may recognize in your children, anyone listening to this, is that one of your children may be extremely vitamin D deficient, more than one may be. I see this every day, even living in Southern California. But the symptoms for kids are bruxism, grinding your teeth loudly, snoring, poor sleep, dark circles under the eyes, ADHD behavior, wetting the bed, that's called nocturia, and delayed growth. Please, 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 when we look into the mouth, we see the dental age. The dental age is the physical age. I was a child that didn't go through puberty till age 16 or 17 because my vitamin D level was so low. So when kids have delayed growth and development, it's because they're not sleeping properly, because kids grow during sleep. And so those are the symptoms that I started to see amongst my patients. They're what I suffered from. And I was grinding my teeth when I was in my first and second year of dental school. I made my first grinding guard, a bruxism guard. And now I make them for almost all my patients. It's become an epidemic. So hopefully that's a good start.
No, I think it's a great start. And that's where you really got my attention on many of the podcasts that you've been on previously, is because it was pretty telltale. Like, this is almost textbook what we have dealt with in the family. And so with that, my oldest, that, where it really got my attention, was diagnosed stage 4 cancer when he was 5. And so this is something that I've just tried to really, he's 10 now, he's doing great, but we still have a lot of these symptoms that you're talking about. And so in order to get them correctly addressed, I want to just kind of clear up that argument between how to know if we should supplement, right? And you've kind of changed my mind as I've dove into this, and I'm really glad that we're getting to clear that up. So to supplement or not to supplement, that argument there, and there's people that I really, really value their opinion and respect them that say do not supplement. So can you clear that up in your context?
Sure. Well, so I have a lot of respect for the experts. I've interviewed them who are saying don't supplement. And then as for someone like the Weston A. Price Foundation, and I have had email conversations with Weston A. Price Foundation. Unfortunately, I think they've gone down the wrong road. I still value them, but I would consider myself a modern day Weston A. Price. If Weston Price was alive today, what would he want to do? Now, I agree that it's best if you can get all of your vitamin D from sunlight, if you can get all of your magnesium from eating high quality foods, this is preferred. I don't want to take a single supplement of something that I can get naturally. But when it comes to something as critical as this, whatever opinions these people have, it's their own stuck nonsense. And I will go toe to toe, head to head with any of them, because this is what happened to me. This happened to me by no fault of my own. I was a sick person my entire life. At the age of 48, someone said, hey, vitamin D. Now, technically, I knew vitamin D came from being outside in the sunlight, but I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm going to go spend more time and get a tan or something. I was thinking I better take some vitamin D. Now, taking that vitamin D changed my life so profoundly that by month 3, my Crohn's disease, after 34 years almost completely just evaporated. But it was that supplementation that was the profound trigger, in that I don't care what any of those people say, they're not sick. I was. And I don't care what, vitamin D does not have the same feedback loops, in my opinion, as other things that you can supplement, because we can't make it. You can also get vitamin D from eating it. Is it natural? Sure. If you're eating whale blubber, it's high in vitamin D. If you're living in the Arctic. So here's what I say. Ultimately, it's best to go in the sun. I think that's going to gives us a lot of different things. Just to go off topic a little bit, the sun does so much more than make vitamin D in our skin. It makes all kinds of other photochemical products. So you definitely want to go in the sun. But you have a sick child who's developing, you supplement them immediately and get them up to the level of 60, okay? And then tell me which symptoms are still present, and I'll explain why they're still present. Now, the younger the child is, the more quickly they will they will basically recover. Okay, so if you have a 3 or 4 year old who's grinding their teeth and you start to give them vitamin D supplements, they'll stop in 2 or 3 days. You take away those supplements, they'll start again. Okay, the older you are, the harder it is to catch that up. But this is a level in your body. People need to understand that when they go to the doctor, they're getting blood tests. Doctors testing for cholesterol. Okay, I don't care about cholesterol. I care about vitamin D. There aren't any studies, in my opinion, that convinced me that cholesterol, dietary cholesterol, is relevant, not to my health, not to anyone's health. I think that when you know what you know about diet, what you should be eating, that cholesterol discussion, this is something that allopathic medicine is using to make money on, and I don't really care about, but your vitamin D level. So I want you to think about this. If you can find some scientific studies that show cancer of any kind and vitamin D levels, okay? And I mean any kind. And now the study that I really want to see is that initial diagnosis. What is someone's vitamin D level at their initial diagnosis of cancer? And I'm going to tell you this, and I've said this on other podcasts, you may have heard this. I don't believe that there's anyone that's ever been diagnosed with cancer that has a high or normal vitamin D level. I don't believe it. Those two things don't coexist. And it's not that vitamin D deficiency causes cancer, it's that vitamin D deficiency allows cancer to progress unchecked. The cell cannot go into autophagy. The cell cannot go into apoptosis. Once you take away this profound hormone that we cannot make and cannot get any other way other than taking it or being in the sun, everything goes haywire. And the body's ability, there's the P53 gene. It's linked to vitamin D. What is the P53 gene? Well, it helps to repair your DNA. What is cancer? It's when your DNA has a mutation. So we have this really finely tuned mechanism of repairing damage and cancer type damage from being in the sun. And that is run by the chemical that you make when you're in the sun. Mother Nature is really balanced, giving you, something when sunlight comes down, it breaks things in your body, but it repairs things in your body. And Mother Nature would never have created us standing upright with our faces exposed if being in the sun was dangerous or toxic or anything. That never would have happened. So in my opinion, back to your question, I think that those people who are giving you that advice don't have a sick child. I think those people haven't felt what it's like to be sick. And I think those people, they don't have the right to do that to you. There's no, if you can get vitamin D through cod liver oil, and that's okay with Sally Fallon or Sally Morrell, whatever she wants to call herself, then what's the difference with taking a supplement? You're just taking a more concentrated form. Would I like to get all of my vitamin D naturally? Sure. Do I want your kids to eat a great, heavy on the meat, what your great grandmother would have cooked them, steak and eggs? Yeah, I want that. But I also want you to think about why these kids can't raise their vitamin D level. And that's a different part of our conversation related to glyphosate. And that's something that everyone needs to understand, that they may be supplementing their child and the child may be going in the sun. It doesn't mean that the human body is changing that vitamin D into the 25-OHD, the form that your body stores, that your doctor measures. So your child may be getting plenty of vitamin D, but because of glyphosate, your body can't convert it. The enzymes that activate vitamin D are profoundly affected by glyphosate. Glyphosate is in everything these kids are eating. It's in every goldfish cracker and every Oreo. And that's what's happening. So this is a major part. This is why someone like me, coming from central Canada, I was vitamin D deficient. My brother was completely healthy. And this is why more and more kids are coming down with this and the obesity. There's basically this combination of things that are going on. It's the food, but the food is destroying the vitamin D status. So in my opinion, you'll see in my work, you'll see the foundational four, and those are vitamin D3, vitamin K2, magnesium, and sulfur. In my opinion, it's a deficiency of those four very specific vitamins and minerals that is at the root cause of the entire metabolic disease syndrome. And it's happening right in front of our eyes, happened to you. I'm first of all, I'm thrilled that your son has recovered, but this is still a component. This is, I consider myself, maybe I have deficiency in my vitamin D receptors. Maybe I need more vitamin D than the average person, which is normal. Okay. There's variations in that. So my opinion, supplement vitamin D3, supplement vitamin K2, people. Vitamin K2, I call the second most important vitamin, because deficiencies of vitamin K2 are affecting everyone right in front of your eyes. You just can't see it. The joint breakdown, the sensitive teeth, the lack of room for all of the 32 teeth, the need for braces. This is a combination of a D3, K2 deficiency. That's at the root cause of so many things going on. And remember that I have 34 years looking, I have 34 years looking into the mouths of adults. I've been in my location for 24 years, and I've seen my patients have kids and seen these kids grow up. So I'm a really good observer. And if I tell you I see the syndrome that's so profound and strong that I wrote a book called The Modern Epidemic, believe it. Because when you read that book, not every symptom that I put in there may apply to you, but I broke that up. I don't know if you saw that I broke it up into the different caricatures: angry man syndrome, bitchy woman syndrome, roadkill. I wanted people to look around them and see the illness that the people, their family members, are experiencing for no reason other than our medical system is so broken and so corrupt that this simple D3K2 combination that even my profession of dentistry has refused to acknowledge, has refused to understand. And that's, where I get really passionate about this, because this is scandalous. Dentists should know better. It was our job to find Weston A. Price and to bring him forward and say, hey, I don't believe everything the guy said, but let's look at what he said. This is the guy who invented the blue zones. He's the first person who went around the world to find out, why are people's teeth terrible in my hometown, and why do people have room for all their teeth in other places? A really, really free-thinking, really open-minded guy that we have not even relegated him. We have just completely banned him. So this is as a result, you had to go through the ridiculous experience. Now, I can't say for certainty, but I can guarantee you that you'd be in a very different situation if your pediatrician from day one said, here's your vitamin D drops, here's your vitamin K2 drops. Don't ever stop taking this. Every time you come into the office, we're going to test you. So when you go into that doctor's office and they test you for cholesterol, they don't test your vitamin D. Where's the correlation? Show me all of the people with cancer that have high vitamin D. And so what does that mean? Well, it's one of the most important readings that your medical doctor can do for you, but it's also something that if you have a high vitamin D level, you're not going to be going to the doctor a lot. All of those visits, the sore throats, the colds, the flus, those disappear, just so you know. And when I raised my vitamin D level from below 20, a level that had never been tested in 48 years, up to 60, and I stopped getting colds and flus, I didn't get a sore throat. The amount of things that changed in my body was so profound that it took me a year to really to get over this. Imagine being a sick person 34 years and just disappears overnight. So I think it's extremely important and really profound for people to understand that this has been withheld from them. This is not a conspiracy, but we've known about vitamin D for a long time. I have pictures in my book of Schlitz's The Sunshine Beer with vitamin D in the 1920s. We just keep on pushing this aside, and Big Pharma doesn't care because they don't make money off of this. So they've not sworn an oath to do no harm. It's the doctors who are being manipulated and brainwashed that are really destroying our health as modern humans. This is actually being done to us, and I think it's extremely scandalous.
Let's go into a little bit more of those cofactors that you talked about. So with magnesium, K2, sulfur. So I don't think that it's possible to get magnesium out of our diet now in modern times. And then K2, that can be a very challenging compound to get. And then sulfur. I think that there's a little bit of confusion around that. And one thing I want you to really address as well is sulforaphane has a lot of efficacy in regards to cancer cells, and so I've always hypothesized that it's the sulfur. And then to clarify one more thing, as you go into those three cofactors in the allergies, the sulfa allergies, that is something that you hear everybody say, I'm allergic to sulfur. And so Stephanie Sneff and I, we went in that a little bit, but I want your take on it. So if you don't care, wrap up those three and why they work together and why we cannot get them readily in the diet.
Sure. Well, the villains are still the same. The villains really is like glyphosate is stealing the sulfur out of the soil. It's stealing the magnesium out of the soil. It's a chelator, so it takes those minerals out of the soil. And this is the soil that we're not getting replenished, right? So the magnesium is critical as a cofactor for enzymes. Magnesium is critical for the production of energy. One of the things that you need to, I know you know what ATP is, adenosine triphosphate. This is our body's fuel. I call it Mother Nature's electricity. Now, ATP needs to have magnesium attached to it to be active. If you don't have magnesium, you cannot utilize that energy. So not having magnesium is going to just basically stop a huge amount of cellular reactions. And each person will break down differently with less magnesium. So magnesium is always in there because it is such a profound producer or regulator of energy. And it's a cofactor for hundreds, if not probably thousands of reactions where we really need magnesium. So that's why that's in there. It's part of our biology and has been since the beginning. If you look in the ocean, you find sulfur, you find magnesium, you find all the chemicals that we're really made of. Okay. So the K2 is there to manage and regulate where calcium in your body goes. Your body uses calcium for many different things. Our entire skeleton and teeth is full of calcium, and that's where we store it. Vitamin K2 helps us take calcium in and out of our bones so we can utilize it in the middle of winter when there's no vitamin D. You're not bringing any calcium. There's probably no vegetation to get the calcium from. And there's no green grass, so you have no K2. Your body technically can pull the calcium, can utilize it from both. Okay. So the D3 and the K2 go together. The magnesium is there to power the reaction. Sulfur is independent. And I consider as my foundational for when I saw Stephanie Seneff's work, again, probably 8 years ago, I knew right away that she was holding some of the missing pieces. Because when you think about our bodies, we're only made of a certain number of chemical elements: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and sulfur. And sulfur, for some reason, isn't studied. And sulfur is required for every surface of your body to have a slick coating. This is what easy water, exclusion zone water, this is Gerald Pollack's work, the fourth phase of water. This gelled water is what we're supposed to have in our body. And we want that gelled water because that gel helps our enzymes have the exact right shape. And for an enzyme, I call enzymes the worker bees of biology. Enzymes are Mother Nature's nanobots. So anything that needs to get done in your body is done by an enzyme. These enzymes function on their shape. And when you have that gelled water, the enzyme is in perfect shape to do its reaction, so you'll be healthier. Now, the sulfur is supposed to be in the lining of all your blood vessels and all your arteries in something called the glycocalyx. And again, this is Stephanie Seneff's work. If you don't have sulfur, you cannot build a glycocalyx. If you cannot build a glycocalyx, you cannot protect your endothelium, your blood vessels, and they're going to get damaged, and your body's going to try and heal the endothelium by using cholesterol as a bandage. I personally think that the calcium is in there just because of a K2 deficiency. I don't think the body is trying to use calcium to solidify the blood vessels that don't collapse. I just think that doctors are making all these assumptions. It's like when people grind their teeth, they say, oh, I grind my teeth because I'm stressed. I can assure you that tooth bruxism is not caused by stress. I can assure you. You may feel stressed when you grind your teeth, but putting these things together, it's like what doctors have been doing. If you eat butter and fatty foods, that goes into your arteries and you see that cholesterol, that's nonsense. That's non-scientific extrapolation of taking something that you think, oh, butter's greasy and bad for you. Oh, it goes into your arteries. This type of stuff is really ridiculous and irrelevant. And we kind of need to get off of that. So the sulfur component, imagine in where if you live in somewhere where there's volcanic soil, there's a ton of sulfur. Are people healthier where they live with lots of sulfur in their soil? Yeah, they are. Stephanie Seneff quoted a study of people living in, I think it was in Greece, Corfu versus one of the other islands. One was volcanic, one wasn't, and there was clear differences in people's health. So when it comes to chemistry, you can't dictate what your body does. This is the way these chemicals come together. Sulfur has a negative charge, and it's responsible for creating that gelled water around your red blood cells in your blood vessels. So sulfur is critical for cardiovascular health. Sulfur is critical for proper blood pressure. Sulfur is critical for protein production. You have disulfide bonds. These are amino acids that create our skin, our hair, our nails. So that's why people will take glucosamine chondroitin. That's got a lot of sulfur. So those are the foundational four elements that I think that people really need to pay attention to and supplement. And sulfur supplementation, there's a lot of history and a lot of studies done on MSM. It's a very healthful element. And I even came across a cancer protocol about taking MSM, which is organic sulfur, and laying in the sun as an anti-cancer treatment. And it makes sense to me because of Dr. Seneff's work on endothelial nitric oxide synthase and something called cholesterol sulfate. What if one of the main chemicals circulating in your bloodstream was called cholesterol sulfate, and that was actually the chemical that was related to your health, and no one was measuring it, no one cared, but there's still science that shows that it's there, it can protect you from cancer. So that's what we're kind of dealing with. There isn't anybody who is going to be looking at these things. You're piecing together the information of a bunch of experts, and it's important. When I saw it over the last couple of years, I know it's important. I think it's so important that I started a record label called Deuterium Records to share this information, because I don't need to prove these things. If you Google them and you look up PubMed and you put in different words and studies, you're going to find that I'm right about everything, and I don't need to be right. I didn't come up with this. I'm putting this together, hopefully in a framework where parents can start to understand that if they want their children to be healthy, they can't trust their pediatricians. They can't trust their dentist. I'm sorry, but I'm as a healthcare provider, I didn't know any of this, and no one in my industry is contacting me. I pushed to get on some podcasts. No one is calling me saying, "Hey, Joel, we want to know more." No dentists are calling me. And that's the world that we live in. I don't know whether it's because they're lazy. Maybe they haven't experienced a sick child themselves. But this is the information that I'm so thrilled to share with someone like you, because this has been messing up your life. The omission of this information has totally messed up your life. You're a good person. I can tell that you care. Like what parent doesn't care about their kids? This is shameful that you're having to dig like this. I'm excited for you, because now you're going to see. I'll answer any questions you have, but I will connect to all these other people, because these are people that I've known and I've interviewed. I interviewed Gerald Pollack years ago, and what can I do? I can speak with people like you, and I can share my information so that people can recognize this and hopefully share, and this information can get out there. So I want to, how can I help more with this message?
Well, the message is unbelievably important, and without the adversity of dealing with my baby, the family issues, things that we've had to go through, I never would have dove into this, right? So we got to have an appreciation for that journey and that adversity, but what you've been able to put together for me is a lot of pieces from some incredible minds, especially as we look into like the quantum aspect has really opened me up to a tremendous amount of information. But, Dr. Petra Davlar who is a dear friend. I think she's brilliant, a wonderful person. She's who connected us. But she's been able to help me understand this, because, you can talk to Dr. Seneff or Laszlo or Jack Cruz or you name Morley Robin. You just name off whoever. And it is so deep and complex, and for the most part siloed, right? So you're missing a big part of the piece. And I think that's why your message is unbelievably important, is because you've been able to piece those together, and for somebody that's a layman like me can understand it, and then more importantly, apply it. So let's go into a little bit more on the basics of deuterium, and then connect that with all of this, because it's very much connected to all of this conversation.
Right. To anyone listening to this, I mean, if this is the first time you've heard about deuterium, one of the things I'll recommend is that, so I am promoting myself. I have a free ebook, and that ebook is 100 pages of digital media online where I've created cartoons to try and make people understand what is deuterium, because this is the basement level of our health. People are starting to know, oh yeah, intermittent fasting, ketogenic diet, red light therapy, sunlight exposure. But where do all these things intersect? Is they intersect in the mitochondria and deuterium. So in my book, you're going to find some comics and different stuff to be able to show you that there's, three forms of water on this planet. There's H2O, there's HDO, and there's D2O. D2O is heavy water, and that's what they use to make nuclear bombs with. So this is right in our faces, and that's what, when you're drinking water, it's a combination of H2O and HDO. There may be a couple of D2Os in there, but water is a molecule, and it has two different elements. It has oxygen and it has hydrogen. H2, two hydrogen, and O, oxygen. So that's a molecule. That molecule is made up of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom. Every atom on this planet and in this universe has isotopes. Those are just different versions of that same element, but they vary only in the amount of neutrons. Everything is only made up of three things: electrons, protons, and neutrons. It makes sense, though. You got your positive and your negative, and when you put them together, you get a neutral. Every single thing that you see that's in front of you, that's real, that you can touch, is made of those three subatomic particles. And the reason we need to care about deuterium is because hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. It's one of the most abundant elements in our bodies. And this difference between regular hydrogen and deuterium is profound, because of when you take a regular hydrogen and you add a neutron, you double the weight. And now you put a kink into every single biologic feature in your body, where when you remove a hydrogen and double the weight, you're going to start to put a kink in all of your enzymes and all of your hormones, in everything. You'll even put a kink into cholesterol. In fact, if you have enough deuterium in your body, sunlight will not be able to break the cholesterol ring and make vitamin D. So ultimately, deuterium building up in your body, in my opinion, is what is the root cause of aging and death. Because once you can no longer make vitamin D, you're done. You're going to choke in your sleep, because sleep apnea is caused by low vitamin D. And then you're going to die. And you're going to die in your sleep, hopefully death of natural causes, because you lived a long life. But that's technically, deuterium comes into it in that way. The other way it comes in is related to cancer and the mitochondria. When the mitochondria is producing energy through the electron transport chain, it's kind of complex, but you want to know that there's an actual rotor that spins like a hydroelectric dam, and every single regular hydrogen that comes through that helps it to spin faster. But when a deuteron, or an atom of deuterium, comes through it, it breaks that nanomotor and it decreases the energy that you can produce. So if you can't produce energy, you can't be healthy. So having too much deuterium is going to slow down your metabolism. The deuterium is going to build up in your body. It's going to cause your enzymes to slow down. It's going to make your DNA more prone to breakage. It's going to extend the time that you're spending when your DNA is copying. It's going to expose your DNA to more sunlight that can break it. So this deuterium is basically what our entire biology is ordered around. If you're a chemist and or a biologist, something called the Krebs cycle. This is how we make energy. It's this big, everyone's nightmare is trying to memorize these 10 steps on a wheel with different enzymes. Each one of those steps is just a step where an enzyme grabs what it thinks might be deuterium, pulls it off, and replaces it with a regular hydrogen, because deuterium is so damaging to us that we just don't want it in our body. And where is deuterium found? Sugar, carbohydrates, starchy foods, all the stuff that tastes good. I think it's really interesting that what makes things taste sweet is what ultimately ages you and kills you in the end. So it's quite a, and that's why I name my record label. You'll be able to see that's deuterium. And I think that this is so important. It's the basis for health, that I don't want everyone to learn, oh yeah, ketogenic diet. Why does a ketogenic diet work? It's deuterium depleted. It's low in deuterium. Grass-fed animal meats and grass-fed animal fat and beef tallow, these are some of the lowest deuterium foods on the planet. And these are the foods that we as humans evolved to eat. This is our food. We eat the meat of ruminants, cows, goats, sheep. They eat the grass. We don't eat grass, okay? We'll survive on it for a while, but we won't thrive on it. We evolved because we figured out how to hunt those ruminants. They convert the grass into beautiful milk and meat for us. And if we respect them and get into, organic farming and regenerative farming, that's what our bodies need the most. The craziest thing is what's best for us is what Mother Nature wants. That's how we evolved. We just have to follow her rules. We can't outsmart Mother Nature.
Could not agree more. One thing that stands out is I asked, Dr. Ken Berry, I said about deuterium just to see if he was aware, and he said that very well may be why carnivore ketogenic diets work. And like,
it is.
Yeah,
It is.
he said he's followed Laszlo, he's dove into that, he agrees, and so. With that, I think the gas side of health may be the most fundamental issue going on. You talked about hydrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, just go into the gases. And I think that is something we don't pay enough attention to and don't maybe understand to the degree that we should. But one thing that you have brought up in some other things I've listened to is talking about melanin. And again, that is a Jack Cruz thing. He's the one that got me there. But my question is, can you explain the melanin? And then can we tie in the copper topic? Because it's my understanding we don't have melanin production without copper because of the tyronase enzyme and then the pan enzyme.
Right. So Morley Robbins, I believe you've interviewed him.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's the copper guy, and I can't argue with him. He's a really smart guy. I haven't released my interview with him, but it brought my attention to copper. We just need to think about a couple things. So our bodies are designed, we're primarily put together as these hydrocarbons, chains of carbon and hydrogen. And then we have these different minerals inside us. And so every mineral on the periodic table of element has a different amount of electrons and protons. Sulfur, turns out, is the perfect element to help lubricate our bodies. Copper, as an atom, it has a very specific number of electrons and protons, and that's how it fits into our biology. Okay, now where all these things come together, and so melanin, we could just think about a couple of things. Is that certain chemicals, the way they're put together, they can be what we call a photon trap, right? So the photoelectric effect is a law that basically a photon can only interact with an electron. Okay, so when a photon of sunlight hits you, it will only ever hit an electron, and it will actually transfer its energy into that electron. It will elevate that electron's energy level, right? So certain chemical structures, and they're all of the rings. So tyrosine and all the aromatic hydrocarbons, they're all ring shaped. And the interesting feature is they have double bonds. Okay, those are pi bonds. And those double bonds, they contain an electron cloud with the electrons all together in one area, so that when photons are hitting this, they're stimulating, and the actual light's getting caught. These are photon traps, right? And if you look at the chemical structure of melanin, it's a massive molecule with tons of rings with double bonds. So it's basically a photon trap where all the light that goes in gets absorbed and none of it escapes. So that's the beauty or the interesting thing about melanin. But those ringed, those are the ones we see as different colors. Different shapes of the rings will let through certain wavelengths of light and keep others out. So those shapes, those ring shapes, those are the ones that absorb light. I don't know if that that makes more sense, right? And so in melanin, basically as the energy comes in, we've been able to harness that energy to split water, to split it into its different parts, right? We have just electrons and protons. And so that's our version of what plants do with chlorophyll. So chlorophyll will split water, sunlight will split water, and in us, melanin does the same thing. So where the copper fits in, we're talking about different enzymes that put these things together. And without enough copper, the enzymes, just like magnesium, you don't have enough magnesium, you can't make enough activated ATP. So for copper, I really got into Morley's stuff, and I think he's really smart. But ultimately, it's just led me to have oysters more often, and that when I do take zinc supplements, take it with copper. And I've been doing that for a while. So there's certain things that really catch my attention. I'm not as excited. I get it. I'm sure copper is critical, but what can I do aside from supplementing more? I don't know.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I think that it's just all of this, what I refer to as the lattice work of mental models, is what really breaks out the true understanding, in my opinion. And I think that when I think in our movement, so to speak, of sincerely trying to help people, sometimes these egos and blinders get in the way, and we're not doing any good for anybody.
Yeah.
We're doing is building up tribes and fighting against each other, and it's not. I have no agenda. I just want to figure out what can I apply to my family and share that, and then we're helping people.
Yeah.
So go into the glyphosate a little bit for how everything that we have discussed is basically wrecked by glyphosate. I think it's a massive issue. Dr. Petra, she's got a couple glyphosate test kits coming to the family. I ordered this morning, actually, because I think it's such a big deal here in Arkansas. We're surrounded by monocrop farmland. I mean, it's an agrarian state. And so I feel like that's a massive part of the equation too. I think the vitamin D, you're spot on, but tie that together, tie the glyphosate together with what we've talked about.
Sure. So this is what should, so a couple things to sort of bring it all together. So we talked about the mitochondria, and if you don't produce energy, no cell in your body can be healthy. If your immune cells can't produce enough ATP, they can't make the antimicrobial proteins they want to use to kill the bacterial and viral invaders. And so everything is a mitochondrial disease or a mitochondrial cause. So our most important thing we want to do is pay attention to our mitochondria and make sure it's optimized in producing energy. Well, so I talked about that Krebs cycle. So the mitochondria has these different cycles where we feed stuff into it and it produces energy for us. Those specific steps are all done by enzymes, okay? Now, these enzymes were designed throughout all of our history on this planet to get rid of deuterium. The reason is, well, that machine, that mitochondrial machine, gets broken when too much deuterium gets in. So all of our biology, the only things that survived were animals, organisms, creatures that kept on getting rid of deuterium. So we have all this evolution towards getting rid of this. Oh, there's a deuterium there, let's get rid of it. And so we want to get rid of all this stuff. Now we have a new player on the field, and you'll see what I call the tag team of terror, glyphosate and deuterium, and you'll see them in my videos. Please check out my videos. You're going to see I did a 4 series of my foundational 4. At the end, we capture the villains, but we really only capture them to identify them, right? If you know who the villains are, you now know how to avoid them. So glyphosate comes into the picture. And what does glyphosate do? Well, the most important thing, and you'll see this in my work, that glyphosate is just an imposter for glycine. And glycine is one of the most important amino acids. Your body is made up of 20 amino acids, give or take. And of those 20 amino acids, the simplest, the smallest one is called glycine. And it's very important because we use this in the production of most of our biology in something called alpha helices and beta pleated sheets. These are our protein structures that make skin, hair, nails. That's what we're made of. So now we've taken this glycine that is very important, and it comes, where does it come? It comes from your diet, comes from the food that you eat, because animals are made up of these amino acids. So this glycine now looks almost exactly like glyphosate, and we keep on putting it into kids' food. And over now, your body's like, okay, I got to make an enzyme because that's how we live. I want to perform a duty. I'll make an enzyme. When the enzyme gets made, instead of glycine, your body puts in glyphosate. It literally grabs a glyphosate and goes, oh, great, glycine, because it doesn't see. It's not the right amino acid. And now this wrong little amino acid is put together, and these amino acids are put together like pearls on a string, one after each other, and then it folds up into this elaborate shape that now becomes a functional enzyme. You start replacing some of these amino acids with this imposter, and as this thing starts to fold, this imposter has an extra piece hanging on that messes with everything. So every single enzyme that is susceptible to glyphosate, and a lot of them are, and this is Stephanie Senath's work, when this enzyme folds, it now can't function. And sometimes the misfolding is so profound that the organism dies. And that's how glyphosate works, is that you spray it on a plant, it dies within less than 24 hours because this plant is trying to live and the enzymes it's trying to make are completely non-functional. And that plant dies right away. If you drink glyphosate, you'll die right away. When we have a lesser amount, it starts getting into our bodies from different ways. We breathe it in, we drink it, we eat it. And now this is getting incorporated into your children. And as your body is trying to make these enzymes, they start to get broken. Now let's go back to the mitochondria. These specific enzymes in this 10-step elaborate dance of taking off a hydrogen, making sure it's not deuterium, the enzymes that do that, they're susceptible to glyphosate. So they can no longer actively screen well, and more deuterium gets into the mitochondria. That's why everyone's suffering from metabolic disease. Metabolic disease is a deuterium, glyphosate, a tag team of terror attack. So the enzymes that your body wants to make to produce energy naturally, it can't do that because this glyphosate's getting in there and ruining the shape of the enzymes. And now the entire system for generating power is broken. And the higher the level of glyphosate gets, the worse that it gets. And this glyphosate gets incorporated into your body, and it's not necessarily a good thing. Your body wants to incorporate deuterium into it, but generally wants to keep it away from the mitochondria. Your body doesn't want or need any glyphosate, and good luck keeping it out, especially like you said, you're in an area where it's probably in the groundwater. It's just probably everywhere. You can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it. And you could have this incredible meal, and you have this one little thing of this sauce could be loaded with glyphosate, ruins your whole meal. Yeah. It's very hard to figure that stuff out. So that's where the deuterium component is. We need to manage our deuterium to keep us young and healthy. If too much deuterium builds up in our body, it is aging. And this glyphosate comes in and says, hey, I can help break this system. And that's why I call them a tag team of terror. So it's not just the deuterium. The reason we're talking about deuterium is because we're being flooded with it. All of these processed foods are loaded with deuterium in an unnatural way. You could never get that much deuterium in the old days, except in the end of the season in summer eating fruit, right? And the sunlight and the fruit are tied together so that the extra deuterium doesn't really damage your body. That's how Mother Nature sort of matched it. But we get rid of this. Imagine taking a pineapple, shipping it up to Alaska, and having somebody eat it up there. There's no sun. They're going to be overwhelmed with deuterium. Okay. So your body can't handle too much deuterium, but what are we doing? We're making it a million times worse by putting this glyphosate into everything. So we're really wrecking our finely tuned body system. And it's as simple as that. Just like I say, the breakdown of our jaw and our airway for kids, no room for our teeth, is simply a vitamin D3, vitamin K2 deficiency. That's the truth. The fact that most of humanity is suffering from a deuterium glyphosate attack, that's just the truth. We can look at all the different aspects and the different ways that people break down, but it's still the same disease. It's a lack of energy, mitochondrial disease. Mitochondria get sick, and when a mitochondria gets sick and dies, you get cancer. You can't kill the cell off. You don't have vitamin D. You can't destroy it, and these cells are going to grow. So to me, it's all very simple. And when you dig into the stuff that I'm talking about, you'll see that I'm right. And I don't need to be right. I just want to share my information. And I say to people, if you don't believe me, because I'm just a dentist or whatever, I'm not a medical researcher, that's okay. But if you have kids, please, please, please look into my stuff. Okay. They deserve a chance, even if you necessarily don't think that what I'm saying is, it's sadly quite simple. Humans evolved to live outdoors and eat the food that was being grown in the area. And we're not following those rules, and everyone's getting sick as a result.
Absolutely. And I think that's a big part of why agriculture and health are such a big part of the podcast content, right? Because we can't have health without appropriate agriculture and sourcing and local and those ideas of it. But I want to end on more of the things that we can do, because, one thing I think would be pretty evident, most people could see, is there's almost like a mousy looking mouth a lot of times with kids that are, or any of us, I guess, with vitamin D deficiency or K2. So if you will, give us some actionable things that we can do or look for in supplements. And I'm curious on your opinion with the two different forms of K2, the MK4 versus MK7. What are your thoughts there?
Well, it's controversy. If you're selling the MK4, then you believe MK4 is better. If you're selling the MK7, you believe MK7 is better. I truly don't know. Does your body convert the MK7 into the MK4? And the reason that the MK7 has a better half-life is because your body can't convert it. I truly don't know. I supplement both of them because I don't know, and because there's no toxicity. Again, it's one of those things. vitamin K2, I eat hard cheeses and I do everything that I'm supposed to do. But it's just one of those things is like, I just don't know if I'm getting enough K2. I think it's so important that I'm going to supplement it. I really don't know whether the MK. So keep in mind that there's, in our bodies, it's really interesting. There's always an animal source of something, and then there's a bacterial source. And the bacterial source is the MK7, and the animal source is the MK4. If we look at people's health in Japan, where they eat natto, they have extremely strong bones. The women have better skin. There's some things that are very obvious, and they're eating the MK7. Okay, so they're eating that natto as MK7. So I don't know that it really matters, and I really, depending on who you listen to, I think if we lost our ability to make that K2, I think we sort of farmed it off to when we domesticated animals, and we just relied on that from them. That's kind of my thought process. But who knows? So, we're not going to get the resources to study these things to make any real difference. So that's what I think about that. So actionable items. So for kids, I'm going to throw out a couple of rule of thumb stuff. You're going to find this all in writing in my book. And in every time I've said something, there's going to be a link to a study on PubMed. PubMed is the medical website that doctors look at to see if something's right or not. When I started handing out a special sheet to all my patients with this information, a lot of them would say, I took your sheet to my doctor and he says you're wrong. And I'd be like, okay, whatever. This is the same doctor that never tested your vitamin D level. This is the same doctor who gave you a prescription for vitamin D2 instead of D3, So for everyone who wants to know the normal amount that I think that most people need to have is 1,000 international units per 25 pounds for dosing. And that's just to maintain. Okay. So 200 pound man, 8,000 IU. Okay. A 100 pound woman, 4,000 IU. So that's a general guideline. Some people apparently are very sensitive to vitamin D. Some people not so much. You can test it. You can get a kit online. You want to be, in my opinion, I want to be over. I've overdosed myself many times, well over 100. I've had many patients who've been up over 150, 180. No one ever had a single issue with it. Every one of my patients, presumably, were taking vitamin K2. So you take D3 with K2 and magnesium. I like to take those together if possible. It doesn't matter. Just take them when you can. I tell most of my patients, take it first thing in the morning because your dentist is driving you crazy. Put it next to your toothbrush. So you just do it, get it out of the way. So most of the symptoms that people are seeing in their kids, most of the things that are keeping your kids home from school, these are all things that are really vitamin D deficiencies. And and there's also something called angular cheilitis. You ever had little sores at the corner of your mouth or sores where your ear joins? That's a vitamin D deficiency. That's because the microbiome of your skin, those bacteria that we want to keep, they want vitamin D as well. That's where this comes together. The good bugs, they want vitamin D. All right. So when your D level goes down, kids, so acne is a vitamin D deficiency. If you have a child right now who has scarring acne, any type of acne, even one pimple, acne is a vitamin D deficiency. It's what happens to kids who go through puberty when they start to have sebaceous glands that are oily coming out on their skin. When their vitamin D level is low, that oily texture is allowing what acne is. Acne is nothing other than an infected hair follicle. So you have an infection. The hair follicle itself is infected with bacteria that you don't want, and your body can't kill it because your vitamin D level is too low. Your actual immune cells that make the antimicrobial hormones, those cells can't make the hormones to kill the infection because they don't have enough vitamin D. Okay. So when you give your child with acne vitamin D, their acne is going to disappear. Even if they're taking all those medications, none of those medications are good. If you have a child that has acne, and this can destroy a child's life because of the mental scarring that comes along with the physical scarring. It's nothing other than vitamin D deficiency. And people are very resistant against this. That's why I created some of my more fun stuff called D's excuses, because everyone's going to run through, oh no, my vitamin D level is just fine. I walk my dog twice a day. I get a ton of sunlight. I drink juice. I drink milk. I'm telling you right now, this is only a measurement. If you don't have a measurement, you don't know your vitamin D level. And if your child is 12, 13, or 14 years old who has acne, I can assure you they're vitamin D deficient. I gain nothing from this. I have my own vitamin line. You can buy my vitamins. It's great. But the reason I have vitamins is because my vitamins I did with orthomolecular. They're organic, non-GMO. I wanted people to have somewhere they could go to just start. Okay. So 1,000 IU per 25 pounds. Take with vitamin K2. Take with magnesium. You can't overdose on magnesium either. It'll just make you go to the bathroom. And then the other thing is that you really want to be thinking about a B complex. And this gets more deep into the syndrome, what causes grinding for adults. Some adults have a high level of vitamin D, but they still grind their teeth at night. Then that's a B vitamin deficiency. A little more complex, so we don't have to get into now. And this is really the work that's related to sleep apnea. And how it works quickly is that vitamin D changes the gut microbiome and allows your gut microbiome to make the B vitamins. That's our animal source, is we make it ourselves. The food source is the B vitamins you can get from eating food. All right. So if the D level is too low, you won't make your B vitamins. And this is related to eczema and psoriasis. To anyone who has eczema and psoriasis, just so you know that after I reversed my Crohn's disease, about 2-3 years in, I started to break out with eczema and psoriasis, and I had a lot of issues for a year and a half. And the root cause was that I didn't have enough B vitamins. I raised my B vitamin intake, and my eczema and psoriasis went away within 2 to 3 days. So if you're suffering from these things, they're all related. They're all related. If you have Crohn's disease, if you have rheumatoid arthritis, this is how your body's breaking down without enough of the hormone that regulates 3 very important things. If you're not sleeping right, you're going to have a hard time being healthy. So,
Yeah.
And that, so I have a lot of different stuff on the internet about trying to get your sunlight naturally. But just to start off, if you need to supplement your child, great, do it. You're going to have an easier time going in the sun. So to anyone who wants to start to get their vitamin D naturally, raise your vitamin D level with supplements first. It's going to allow you to tan. It's going to allow you to be in the sun much easier than if you just start from scratch. You can. There's nothing wrong with that.
Thank you. I have thoroughly enjoyed this, and you have definitely continued to help me piece it together. There's so much more I want to get into, so we're going to definitely have to do a follow-up. I really, really want to get into the gut stuff, and especially those B vitamins. I think that's probably worthy of a podcast in itself. Stephanie and I, we've discussed that too, but man, she gets deep. She gets super deep. But Joel, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for just continuing to push through, put out amazing content, and continuing these conversations. And very, very excited to get to know you.
Wow, this has been great. Thank you. It's great to have somebody who asks me the right questions. So, Dan, and keep in mind that if my book's going to lay out a bunch of stuff. I've only put out a very small part of what I've learned over the last years because, I want my goal. I don't care about biohackers. That's how I got into this. None of the people in my tribe want to talk to me, which is interesting. And all I want to do is share my expertise on pediatric craniofacial growth and development, how the jaw grows and develops, how to avoid pediatric sleep apnea. That's what I want to share. And that's why I'm going to that whole next effort of creating these cartoon characters that sing and dance. And hopefully your kids are going to grow up on the information. My cartoon characters, it's like TikTok, it's like Schoolhouse Rock on steroids, is that just by getting to know these cartoon characters, kids are going to learn science whether you like it or not. And I think it's a good thing. We're being, the powers that be, big food, big agriculture, they're just trying to distract you and snow you and confuse you. The more you know about your health, the more we break down what biology really is and what it takes to be healthy, the less control they have over us. And so I would encourage anyone watching this, please go to my website. And it's called modernhuntergatherers.com. Follow me on Instagram. Type in Modern Hunter Gatherers. No one will talk to me, even though I'm an older gentleman with a lot of information to share. Without that social media following, it's hard for me to get a message out. I want your kids and all these kids to grow up with something valuable after 10 years in a cartoon paradigm where your kids are playing video games and spending your money on Robux and all this stuff. Wouldn't it be great if they could go somewhere and do exactly the same activities, play video games, meet their friends, put on skins and have avatars? What if all those things were science related? And after 10 years in that gaming and in that entertainment paradigm, you'd be a walking, talking scientist, because instead of memorizing nonsense stuff, Pokemon Go, that you would actually know the names of enzymes and you'd understand how the mitochondria works. So please check out my cartoons at, the other thing you want to check out is my record label called Deuterium Records. And again, I don't know, people get really weird about deuterium, but this is the most important thing that you're ever going to learn about health and biology. What is deuterium and how do I get rid of it? How do I avoid it? All the stuff, the red light therapy, the biohacking, the intermittent fasting, that's all to be getting to have a deuterium depleted lifestyle. So that's the basement level. Check out my cartoons.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us on Sowing Prosperity. Be sure to follow along across the social media platforms, including YouTube, and be sure to go to sowingprosperity.com.